And we're back. We're talking about spiritual imbalance, and this is falling under the psychology and the spirituality of want. Why am I saying the psychology? Because there's a method to how we want. We think about it first. We want in our flesh. We want carnally, and it's okay to want, but God has a thing that he says in his word about how we want, and he understands us. And in his scripture, we know that he understands us because he tells us in his word, the Lord is our shepherd, we shall not want. He speaks to us that he doesn't want us longing and craving and lusting over things. It takes away from him as a parent, as a provider. If he's providing everything for us, it's almost like saying, it's not a good parent. Lord, you're not good to me that you would have me longing and wanting. And one of the things we have to realize is that some of the things that we are longing for or wanting are not the things that are not provided for us. We just want other things because we're in our flesh. Sometimes when we're whining about a house, we're in a house or we're in some form of shelter, and we have provisions being made for us, but we want more. And then sometimes because we want more, it becomes like a fleshly want and a desire. I'm single, so I want a man. I don't want to be alone. I want that feeling again of having intimacy and having somebody. And it's not that your needs are not being met. It's not that you're not healthy or that you're not intelligent still or you can't function at work, but you just have this want. And sometimes a want can just take control. And once a want takes control of you, it becomes lustful. And once you become lustful in your wants, you're now outside of God's grace and presence with it. And we need to learn how to want as a Christian wants. And wanting as a Christian means we have to gain some spiritual maturity. We have to stop being so immature, and we have to stop huffing and puffing for the things that we want when we can't get them at the time that we're asking for it. Moving on now to spiritual imbalance. I was using really short, quick scriptures, and this is not going to be any different. Proverbs 13:25. The righteous eat to the satisfying of his soul, but the belly of the wicked shall want. God always knows and tells us that there needs to be a balance. We're going to talk about the righteous versus the wicked. When I'm talking about spiritual imbalance, what I'm talking about is the person who lives their lives out of order and then still believe that God owes them something because of their belief in God. I'm going to let you sit with that for a minute. You're out of order. You know you're out of order. But because you have faith or because you believe in God, you think that God owes you something. In other words, you're the person who tells God that he moves first. You're the person who says to God, I'll pay tithes after you give me that raise. You're that person who lives in sin with you're living and you're outside of marriage, but you think it's okay that you're outside of marriage, but you want God to bless the relationship as that relationship is being lived in sin. You're that person who really have a faith in God and you believe that God is there and you believe that you are a Christian, but you're so frustrated in your walk because you feel like God is not answering your prayers, but you're not making the connection that God is not answering your prayers because you are so far out of balance with what he wants for your life. What I want to talk to you about right now is that spiritual imbalance. When you want and you want and you want and you're asking God for things and your life is not in order, you have to get in check and ask yourself, what are you doing? Where are you standing? And what it is that you're actually asking for. You need to find out whether what you're asking for is what God actually wants for you in your life. Are you in God's will as you're wanting? I went to a seminar one time, a women's conference, and one of the titles was Why It Feels Like Your Prayer is Hitting the Ceiling. And I said, well, excuse me, I got to go in there. Because sometimes, Lord, I feel like you just won't answer my prayer. I know that you can. And this is where you become frustrated in your walk. When you have faith in God and you love God and you know that he can do something and he's not doing it, of course the easier route to go is to get mad at God. You say, I'm frustrated with you, Lord. I'm even mad at you. Like, why does it seem like the wicked get whatever they want? Here I am, I'm loving you, and I'm loving you to death, and I'm going to church, and I'm praising you, but you're not answering my prayers. But we're not looking at ourselves, and you know, anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of looking at yourself first. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me, all right? And know my thoughts. See if there be any wickedness in me, and lead me to the way everlasting. I think that that's such an intimate scripture, Psalms 137, 23, 24. I think that's such an intimate scripture because it's about you and God. We get into fights with our husbands, and we get into fights with our co-workers and with our best friends and with our colleagues, and we want to put the blame on them. Everything is somebody else's fault. But I love those scriptures that make us face ourselves and our own intimacy and our relationship with God. And when you're out of balance, there's something going on with your relationship with God. I want to get blunt with you. You're living in sin. Okay? Stop asking God to anoint that sinful situation. You have to get into righteousness. I used to give this example in my therapy. I would say, when you are standing in garbage that you should be standing on, if you stand in a mess, it starts to creep up on you, and it gets on you. And could you imagine opening up a garbage can or a dumpster and willfully just standing in it? That's what we ask God to do every time we want to pull him outside of his righteousness into our mess. If you have company that's coming over, if you have grandparents or an aunt or an uncle who haven't come over to visit for a while, the first thing you want to do is clean up. I'm going to clean up. I have a guest coming over. I want to clean up my house. I don't want anyone to see my mess. We don't clean up our mess for God. And we should at least try. Some of us need God to help us clean up the mess, and I understand that. But you should at least want to try. It's like, it blows my mind when I see people and they curse like a sailor, and the scripture tells us that the same mouth that curse and give praises ought not be so. But they just don't even try. It's one thing when you're trying, but some people don't even try, right? I'm not going to even try to fix my language. But then I'm going to turn around and use that same mouth, and I'm going to ask God, why aren't you fixing my husband who curses me out? Or why aren't you going to help a relationship with me and my boss? I don't like the way they disrespect me. But you still haven't cleaned up your mouth when you're dealing with God, with the way you speak to other people. There's a spiritual imbalance. It's like we want God to be the true, genuine God that he is, but we don't want to be the Christian that he requires us to be. And we know good and well that the word tells us that God will have to turn his back on our evil ways. We're out of balance. We're out of sync. We're also out of time. But we are going to talk more about this when I return. Bye.